Welcome back to my stories, or the stories of my life, put it that way. Um, Today I went to help out with a situation. I'm not going to get into any of that, right now, but one of my grandkids, my oldest granddaughter, was very upset and just needed to hug me and cry it out, and made me think a lot about her age and that time of my life. And it's a little bit ahead of where we are. But let's go back. I don't know if I told you, but when I was in kindergarten, they didn't think I was ready for school, so I stayed in kindergarten another year. Okay. And last time we were at the point where my dad had left and everything, how I felt about it. But during this time also, they diagnosed me with dyslexia. And I don't have dyslexia today. Not at all. I haven't had it for many, many, many years. And I believe for many years that God healed me of that because it just went away. But I don't know. Maybe I didn't have it. I mean, believe me, there's plenty of miracles in my life. I don't have to claim one that He didn't do in that way. But I think they misunderstood what was going on with me. So around the time that I turned, 8, 9, around there, there's a lot of stuff going on. We had moved into an apartment from Applegate Court. Oh, actually, right before Applegate Court, we left. I had this friend next, couple of doors down from me, and I'd go over, and he always had a Shasta drink in his hand or some ice cream popsicle thing or something, and he used to ask me all the time, do you want one? Do you want one? Of course, I'm a little kid. I'm like, sure. And he would go in. I never really picked up on it till later, but he would go in and say, Mom, Bill's hungry again. And after this happened a few times, Department of Social Services got called on my mom, thinking that I was not being fed because of that small thing that was happening. And it just goes to show how people can overreact without knowing a situation. And it became a problem between my mom and my dad. But, I mean, it all worked out because it was proven, obviously, that she wasn't starving me or anything. And the situation was just ridiculous if you think about it. But anyway, so when we moved from Applegate Court, we ended up in some apartments. There was a big golf course across the street, and I remember I used to collect golf balls out there and then go back and sell them to golfers. And it was not bad making money that way. I made a little bit of money. It was for a little kid. It was pretty cool. I remember playing on the golf course a lot. I remember I had this pocket knife and I had a frog for a pet, and he died. And I remember I dug a little hole right there on the golf course, put him in it, put the dirt back over him, lay my knife down beside it. I had an M80. For those of you that are not of that era, M80 was like a little tiny piece of dynamite, which they don't sell anymore. Even the ones that are called M80s are not the M80s of the 70s, 60s and 70s. So, they were dangerous. I mean, so they banned them. But I had one. And I thought, well, I'll give my frog a little funeral. So I buried him, like I said. And I took an M80 and I lit the M80 and ran back. And it exploded. Made the hole bigger. I went over and the frog was gone. I don't know where it went. And the knife sitting beside it was gone. I looked forever for both and I never found anything. So I don't know what happened, but the M80 just blew it somewhere where I just couldn't find it. even the knife. So it was crazy. But that's why they banned them, because of crazy stuff like that. Kids were getting hurt with them. When I was a little kid, I had one. Back then, yeah, parents let their kids do a lot of things that they don't let them do now. We had a lot of enough freedom to get away with things too, because we weren't watched so closely. So, as the things I talked to you about before that happened to me, a lot of that's because, there wasn't as much supervision as what we give today. Sometimes we overdo it, I think, today, but there was good things and bad things about the way it was back then. I, as a kid, loved freedom. And when my dad left, I was really brokenhearted. Something in me changed. I started collecting stuff, just junk. It's real sensitive for me because it's a real strange thing that I did. I would see something on the ground, and I couldn't pass it. Somehow I was equating it to my dad, I think, because every time I saw something, I thought it would be like me rejecting them if I didn't pick it up and keep it. And it's crazy, but mentally that's where I was. So I had so much junk. I kept picking it up, taking it home, and my room was a disaster. I mean, a disaster. Between all the junk I was keeping and my toys and everything. And my stepfather kept warning me. And then one day he just came in there and he packed everything up and threw it away. He apologized later because he didn't realize what he'd done, how much it impacted me. But it was bad. I did find some stuff that somebody pulled. I guess they pulled out of the trash, some boxes of stuffed animals, and I grabbed some, including a teddy bear that I got. Which I hate to keep going back, but that reminds me of another story. That teddy bear meant something to me, even when I was a little bit older. Because when I was 3, they were trying to break me from the bottles. I would drink bottles, and that's all I would drink out of. And my mom had this bright idea: take me to the store and pretend to trade the bottles for something I wanted. Pick out whatever I wanted. So I picked out a teddy bear, a little panda bear, and I named him Ted Ted. And so she's like, okay, let's go get that. I'm like, oh, wait, I want this gun and holster set. I don't know if I was just manipulating or what, but probably. But I got the gun and holster set too, and the bear. So she traded my bottles in, and we left with a gun and holster, cowboy holster set, and a panda bear that I kept with me. And I know I still have it today in my closet. Don't get it out and squeeze it, but or hug it. But yeah, I don't know. It's in my closet to this very day. And my stepfather teased me mercilessly the more older I got. When I was like 8 and 9, he would call it my wife and all this kind of stuff. It was awful. But he would do that all the time. Don't forget your wife. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I had a favorite blanket when I was little that we left at a hotel and on vacation. I cried like crazy. They went and tried to find it. It's things like that when you're little that happen. But anyway, so I found the teddy bear in the box and I got him out. Took that and some stuff home. And then I also found something else that was out in those woods that would impact my life for the rest of my life, really, in many ways. I found little magazine pictures, some torn up, but it was pornography. And so, right there between 8 and 9, I found this pornography and stuff. And we don't realize how much pornography affects us. And it affected my life. It really did. It's a thing that I have to be careful to this day that I don't fall back into it, because it's so addicting. And, they say that when you look at that kind of picture, it's like a camera, like the old cameras, not digital, where there's film. You take a picture and that gets splashed onto the film. Well, your brain does that with those pictures. It just like splashes onto your brain in a way that you never forget those pictures. They have that kind of effect on you. They're always there. I remember them to this day. And then it becomes this thing of obsession with it, and it's just an awful thing. And when kids find it on the internet or wherever, or in dad's drawer or whatever, it's a bad, horrible thing to do to your kids. So I warn people about it. Don't get involved in it, and certainly don't do it. You got kids. You don't let your kids ever fall into that stuff. It's so hard to keep them from it today. But it's and there's soft porn, which is on TV basically, and it's all a problem. It really is. It had a problem in my life because of that. I know that's where it started. The other things that happened to me played a part, I'm sure, too, but nothing more than porn, really, that affected me long term. So, I also got a girlfriend around that time. Her name was Shelton, and she was so cute, little redhead, and we would hang out all the time, playing each other's houses and stuff. And then my parents got the bright idea that it was okay that we would spend the night together. We could spend the night because we were just buddies, and they didn't know that we would play show and tell, I mean, it was dumb. Now, as a parent, you think I ever let my kids do that? No way. Not in a million years. Because I knew. I mean, it's obvious to me. So, yeah, it wasn't good that we were doing that stuff. And we would kiss and stuff and kind of make out. As, 9-year-olds. She was my girlfriend for a while. And as 9-year-olds, we were doing that and planning our wedding and stuff. And meanwhile, we were digging a hole in the ground underneath in her basement. There's a place that was just dirt. We thought we'd dig us a little tunnel. So here we are playing like little kids and still talking about getting married one day. In the meantime, this kind of obsessive compulsion type behavior, which you may call that today, was still bad. And then it became a thing of everything had to be even. And so if I start off on the right leg, the next time I had to start off on the left leg. I mean, it was just so obsessive. Then I got to this thing where I could imagine skin coming off and I would have to do like this, put it back, or it was just always some kind of tick. I still have a little bit of ticks, I think. You probably will notice them, but not like that. It was debilitating. It's hard to really even explain how much it controlled my life as a kid. It was always on my mind. Every little thing like that was on my mind, and I was always having to cater to it. So my family and I, we were going to a church in Gastonia at the time, and it was a Baptist church. I remember sitting this seat. I had gotten a brand new 3-piece suit, vest and everything. And I was there, uncomfortable in my 3-piece suit. But I remember an altar call from the pastor. Now, I remind you, I talked to God from the time I was little. I don't remember a time that I didn't talk to Him. But when He gave that altar call, I know the Lord was telling me I needed to go. Nobody said anything to me. I just got up and I walked down and I asked Jesus to come into my life, to be my Lord and to forgive me for my sin. 1 week later, in that same 3-piece suit, I was baptized, submerged underwater with my suit on. And I used to tease people all the time. I said, When I was baptized in my three-piece suit, I come up out of that water, I was delivered from that three-piece suit. I was delivered from a lot of things. So I never wore a three-piece suit again. And we started going to this, like a small group where this man named Adger McKay, he was a missionary in Africa and different places he would go, but Africa's the one place I remember. And he would sit there and he would preach. And I would sit there looking at the Bible, at the scripture he's teaching on. And this man would take one scripture, he could teach on it for 2 hours. And as a 9-year-old, I was there just listening. You know? I was saved on June 9th, 1974. My birthday's July 29th. And sometime after my birthday, we were there, and my mom and Adger McKay prayed for me to receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And I did receive it. And I only spoke one word at the time when I started. That word was amor. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it all. In the meantime, they had put me into a special school for dyslexia, and lots of people with different types of disabilities, and even some geniuses. It's just a specialty school to help people learn in different ways. And I was at that school, and I missed 119 days of school, having strep throat over and over again. And I remember my mom used to make it feel really good to be sick. And I know I was really sick, but there were a lot of times when I think that I just didn't feel good. I could have gone to school anyway, but she was very sweet and didn't know that she should probably push me to go to school. And she would say, "Oh, it's okay, honey, just stay home." So when I came back to school, they're like, they showed me how I missed how many days, and I would have to repeat that grade. So there I was. It's 2 years behind. And, going to that school was very different. I really liked this girl in third grade. When I finally got to third grade, I liked this girl so much. Her name was Libby. And I think another guy had a crush on her too. And he would pick at me, and we would do our work on the floor a lot of times, and he kept grabbing my pencil out of my hand and tossing it. And she would laugh, and it made me so mad. And the first time, and the only time I completely lost my temper, was that day. And everything went black. I couldn't see. All I could hear is the banging of the desk around. And I had him up, slinging him around on the desk, hitting the desk. And then when I came through, my eyes came open. I had my 2 fingers on his windpipe. Now, I was taking martial arts at the time. Dave Adams Karate School. It was supposedly a guy who took from Bruce Lee, but who knows. I met somebody who really took from that group, but that was years later. So anyway, I had my fingers there on his throat. And I came through, and I just started crying. I said, I'm sorry. My teacher grabbed me up, and we were all going outside, and she pulled me aside, and she said, "Don't you take martial arts?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "You need to be careful." I'm like, "I know, I didn't mean to." And believe it or not, that kid came up to me and apologized because he knew he had been picking at me. It was nice. So we became friends anyway. I remember being in that school. I had fun at that school, actually, jumping from one bar to another bar, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, outside. And they kept checking my pulse, and my pulse was always really high. I think it was just hyper. And like, gosh, your pulse is so high. And I'm like, I don't know. I talked to my parents, but nobody really knew if it was what it was. But then when it came time, oh, but yes, that was Mrs. Packard though. That teacher I had such a crush on too. A lot of crushes in my life, but her husband actually bought the old Packard cars, and souvenir, like old timey cars, but that was their last name. And she was really a neat lady. I loved her to death. She was really sweet and beautiful too. But it came time to think about putting me into a regular school, and the regular school put me up a grade. They were trying it just. So I spent the last half a year in fourth grade, and then I had to do fourth grade anyway the next year. But we took French in fourth grade, and I was always such a silly romantic, yeah, I always wanted to love. And I think part of that was that when my dad left, my mindset was, I want to do it right. I want to find somebody that'll love me, and I can love them, and there won't be this kind of stuff where you leave your kids and your wife and all this stuff. I just wanted to do it differently, and that was my biggest goal in life. And I guess it's probably why I was talking to my girlfriend at the time, that before we moved. So talking to her about getting married and stuff when I was 9. So I was 10 by the time by the time I received the baptism of the Holy Spirit, and all this stuff was going on. But we were taking French, like I said, and I thought, whoa, love. I want to look up love. So I look up love, and guess what the word love is? Amour. And the funny thing is, I'd ask the Lord, what is this? I keep praying this one word. What is it? What is it? And He showed me. He showed me. That word was love. And that's what I was saying to Him. I was so blown away by it. And over the years, the Lord expanded my spiritual tongue, where it's, a lot. I don't know what all I say exactly. Not particular words. But it gets expanded the more you delve into praying in the Spirit and stuff. That's just something that happens. But that was a blessing to find out that, and He set it up for me to find out. The Lord did a lot of things in my young life to show me Himself, to show me how real that He was, and it was special. I remember I was talking to my mom after I got saved, and she says, Bill, honey, there's never a time in your life you didn't know the Lord. And even being young, I thought about that, and I thought, wow, she's right. I did. I talked to Him all the time. But I still knew I needed Jesus. I needed to make that decision for my life. It was still a thing I needed to do. To give myself to Him willingly, knowing what I'm doing. And this is where a lot of people, they get it wrong. Sometimes you can push a kid into doing something before they even know what they're doing. I've seen it in my own ministry. I've seen kids like that. It's a detriment. Don't do it. Wait till they're ready. Let them be ready and want to do this. And it comes at different ages for different people. All my kids were, like different ages. And same with the Spirit. It doesn't always come right away. I mean, the Lord blesses you, but whether you find that the giftings in you, it can take more time. So, a little side note, always remember that when you're dealing with your children, and yourself, for that matter. It's important. So that time frame was very special. I remember for Christmas, 1974, I got my own Bible. It was a living Bible, and the paraphrased Bible, and it was really good for me because it was really easy for me to understand, and I absolutely loved it. And they wrote a really nice note in there for me and stuff. And and then it reminded me of something else. When I was younger, my mom would send me to these uh, what do you call them? This Bible schools, like in the summer. You go in and they teach you stories and stuff. Well, I'll have to read them to you. It happened. I'm not sure what age it happened, but I was really young. I was probably like 4, and I'll pull them out at some point and read them to you. What they were. They're pretty funny. How I interpreted the stories that they were teaching, and from a kid's perspective. So, being 10, it was an interesting time in my life. We moved again to another neighborhood in Gastonia. And, I was probably still 9 actually when we moved over there. And, but then, I was 10 not too long after. We stayed there for a little while. I guess from the time I was probably 8 to 10, we were actually at that house. We had moved already again because we were only in the apartments for a short time. But that house was interesting. It was a kind of a fun neighborhood. It was a rowdy neighborhood in many ways. Crazy, crazy people. So I'll have to tell you some more stories about that later. But that all contains things like my best friend's brother who took up for me, and these crazy friends I had that came off of a farm to live in the city, and their nuttiness. I will tell all of you that next time. There's a lot to it though. So, yeah, and I'm trying to go back with things I remember. If I didn't tell you, I will try to go back if I can remember things. But I'm just trying to tell you as I remember mostly, and I don't mind hitting things that are from the past even again. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and many blessings to you. And I ask again if you'll please like and subscribe. Pass this on to friends, and family. If anybody that might be interested in it. I know they're just my little boring stories of life, but they're not all boring. Some of them may be. And believe me, more to come. More crazy, more exciting things, that happened in my life. And I'm going to talk about all of it. So, but anyway, God bless. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.